Good evening, America. It is Q News tonight, and we are a live and unscripted news show, the world's first live daily gay evening news show, and it's 7 p.m. Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. Let's break right into our breaking Q News, impeachment and the GOP's refusal of evidence, day 2 of the impeachment trial. We've prepared this. Watch this.
I am struck by what we have heard from the President's counsel so far tonight. They complain about process, but they do not seriously contest any of the allegations against the President. They insist that the President has done nothing wrong, but they refuse to allow the evidence and hear from the witnesses. They will not permit the American people to hear from the witnesses. And they lie. And lie, and lie, and lie.
So it's day 2 of the ongoing Senate trial surrounding the alleged Ukrainian phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Donald Trump. So in a 53-47 vote, Republicans blocked 4 motions made by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to allow additional evidence, testimony, and most importantly, witnesses that have firsthand experience and knowledge of the alleged phone call into the Senate trial of Donald Trump.
Well, we're in day 2. Are we over impeachment yet?
No. It will be continuously interesting to see how it plays out. As we saw today, unfortunately, it was a partisan vote.
I'm curious, Napoleon, what do you think the LGBTQ community's reaction now is 48 hours into this? Do you think they're paying attention?
I hope that they're paying attention. I know a lot of our community, the LGBTQ community, is very familiar with being chastised and on the outside of what's going on, which means I hope that a lot of them are paying attention because they're not on the outside in this issue and they have the ability to have their voice heard. I hope all of them have gotten to their senators to say, I want witnesses involved in this trial. I hope all of them have gotten on board. Is my level of understanding that they've done that? No, but I think this is exactly the opportunity where we as an LGBTQ people can come together and have the voice that we need and echo that throughout the rest of the year in this important year of elections.
Aaron is our political expert at Q News tonight. Are you surprised that we didn't get, that the Democrats didn't get 4 votes?
I am, after Mitt Romney had suggested that he likely would defect from the GOP and be one of the votes that Democrats needed to allow witnesses.
So you are surprised?
I'm very surprised.
Yeah.
Disappointed.
All right, we have a second breaking Q News, breaking Q now story, and that broke today. Historic. Gabbard sues Hillary Clinton for defamation. Before we get into that, we've prepared this for you. Watch this.
As Gabbard hits Clinton with a $50 million defamation lawsuit over Russian asset remarks. The Democratic presidential candidate, Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, is accusing former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton of deliberately spreading false accusations that Gabbard is a Russian asset in a lawsuit seeking upwards of $50 million in damages.
So this is Tulsi Gabbard, as we see in the video, and she is the first presidential candidate to ever sue another presidential candidate in the name of Hillary Clinton. We all remember from 2016 and from Bill Clinton's years. Tulsi Gabbard states that Hillary carelessly and recklessly impugned upon her by stating that she is the Russian fan favorite, that Gabbard is the Russian fan favorite. And she also has a lot of other history with Hillary Clinton, stating that the political elites of Hillary Clinton's sort are in the middle of a critical presidential election, and that she can prove, that Tulsi can prove great economic loss. She's actually suing for $50 million because of this effect. And the suit says that Clinton felt slighted because of Gabbard's quick public support of Bernie Sanders in 2016. Clinton has personal hostility toward her, and that this has been a damaging whisper campaign toward her. So we hear thoughts from their campaign as to what Hillary has done. Ultimately, we see that Gabbard, a Hawaiian dark horse candidate for this current politics, for the current political spectrum of this year, could still pull forward, but we're not sure where it's going to go. Hopefully this $50 million lawsuit is not going to deter her.
I can't wait to hear any thoughts.
Well, I think it's very interesting that Tulsi Gabbard speaks to the fact that Hillary Clinton only made these remarks because allegedly Hillary Clinton had felt slighted that Tulsi had supported Bernie over Hillary in the 2016 primary. But I think that speaks to the flaws in the case that Tulsi Gabbard is going to represent, is that you can truly not speak to the operation of one's mind in a court of law. You really, it has to be evidence-based, factual, and she's going to have to really be able to show that she's suffered some personal economic, financial losses throughout the course of this lawsuit.
It sounds like an uphill battle to me.
For Tulsi, yes.
Of course, that's our breaking Q news tonight. Before we move into other news headlines, we want to thank Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale. They helped the production of this set, and we thank them very much. And we remind you that we're broadcasting from the very historic World AIDS Museum and Education Center, right on famous Wilton Drive here in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We're going to move into other news, and we're going to begin with Queuing Up the World. And in Queuing Up the World, several big stories catch LGBT attention today. First, 11 countries have announced bans of Apple TV's series Little America. And Napoleon, tell us a little bit about what's happening.
Yes, the Apple TV series Little America, critically acclaimed, by the way, has been banned in 11 countries, including Russia and 10 Middle Eastern countries. There was a specific episode titled The Sun, in which a gay Syrian refugee is trying to gain asylum in the U.S. So he can live openly. This is the only episode that has been banned in any of those countries, and that's where part of the problem is, because we don't have enough queer Arab representation, and that's what the creators have been putting forth, that we don't have that identity and that it's harmful to not have that in our culture. The harsh reality of the queer Arab work was that the Trump travel ban actually kept them from being able to film in the U.S., and they had to, the cast and crew, move it to Canada just to film the conversation. So we see that Trump's travel ban has caused more harm in terms of this entertainment story. I hope that I get a chance to see it, because that is an understated way of, or an understated part of our community to get representation.
Well, interesting news that is coming out about the effects of Little America. We are going to continue to watch that. Also in Queuing Up World News tonight, we move to South America, and LGBT rights in Uruguay are in danger. And Aaron, tell us about what's happening there. First off, America, before Aaron tells us this, Uruguay has had one of the most progressive policies of gay rights in the Americas. Tell us about what's happening there.
Well, yes, Uruguay is actually known for its wonderful history towards the LGBT community, being one of the first countries in the entire world to legalize same-sex marriage, even previously before that, recognizing same-sex civil unions. Yeah. They recently had a presidential election, so we're seeing that proponents of LGBT rights are now in fear over the National Party leader, their new president, Luis Alberto Lacalle Pou, who has a strong, very long history of opposing gay rights.
Well, we're going to continue to watch that. Many activists here in the United States have begun sounding alarms today about what is going on. Before we move into our next segment, I want to tell you at Q News tonight, we don't edit the news. This is completely unscripted. Very unusual for a news show, certainly for an LGBT news show, and we're completely live. And we thank you for joining us tonight. As you know, I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and these are my co-anchors doing a very fine job. We're just into week 3, Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays. So we move into Queuing Up the USA, coming a little closer to home. Our first big news that we want to report on tonight is about a bill that is being discussed in Missouri about criminalizing, of all things, drag queen story hours. We have prepared a little video piece on that to start the story. Watch this.
With millions of books in the Missouri Public Library system, one lawmaker wants to keep, quote, age-inappropriate sexual material away from minors. Republican State Rep Ben Baker of Neosho has introduced the Parental Oversight of Public Libraries Act. It will create local boards of parents to hold public hearings and vote to decide what books are too sexual for kids and keep them out of the children's section.
I think that some books are too sexual for children, and I think that they definitely should do it.
So we hear this bill, it's the Parental Oversight of Public Libraries Act, and they state that it is to make sure that libraries have parent boards that approve of the display materials and the events. But even the person that wrote this bill has gone on record to state that it is specifically to tackle drag story hours, that a lot of the community, from his point of view, feels that drag queens are over-sexualized and that anything over-sexualized, regardless of what it be, should not be exposed to children. And I think that not just that fact, but the fact that it's a $500 fine or a year in jail for reading to children is something that we have to be paying attention to, because that could be something that spreads throughout the country just for helping kids to read. It's worth noting as well, from the right side's point of view, that family literacy was a Barbara Bush cause as the First Lady when she was in office, to make sure that all kids could read. And so this, in juxtaposition of that idea, is blasphemy to me, because she was there to make sure, a Republican candidate, a Republican First Lady, was there to make sure that we could help children to read. And now when we're doing that, it's too sexual because a drag queen, meaning a man dressed as a woman, is too sexual.
In watching this story today, any understanding of what the reaction is of why drag queens become a unique spark in this story of what is trying to be?
I think that drag queens challenge everything that is wrong with society. It's institutionalized sexism and institutionalized toxic masculinity. So if anything goes against the status quo of what is deemed masculine or to be the predominant white male, which overrules and oversees so much of the elite aspect of society, it goes against that. It challenges a norm. And for that to challenge norm, it's scary. For the opposition.
That's the problem for LGBTQ youth and why this program exists in the first place, because this program, as has been explained by a number of representatives in the library themselves, which has happened, has stated that LGBTQ youth programs save lives. They help kids to find a way of connecting to the community, and it avoids suicide for them.
Well, we're going to follow this story. If Missouri passes this, I'm sure it's going to make national headlines beyond Out of Q News tonight reporting it. We continue in queuing up the USA and move to New Jersey. New Jersey has banned the gay panic murder defense, and we've prepared this on the story. Watch this.
Time when hate crimes against the LGBTQ community are rising in New Jersey, repealing a law like this is an important step forward. And we saw that as it moved through the legislature with unanimous votes, that our elected officials understand the importance of this as well.
The bill that was signed by Governor Murphy today prohibits a defendant from using a victim's actual or perceived gender identity or sexual orientation as a heat of passion defense in New Jersey court.
So the gay panic defense in the state of New Jersey, bipartisan support in both the state Senate and the state Assembly. So Republicans and Democrats speaking out against the fact that the gay panic defense should not be allowed in a court of law. Interesting to note that it's also referred to as the heat of passion defense, which when one uses it in a court and they're charged with that in lieu rather than just a general murder conviction, instead they receive 5 to 10 years in prison for murdering someone who's LGBT. However, had they been tried and convicted over a general murder conviction, they would have gotten anywhere from 30 years to life. So again, it is a tool that is unfortunately used by homophobic bigots, transphobic bigots to target our community and get away.
We certainly congratulate New Jersey on their new law and decision. We continue in queuing up the USA by talking about kind of a wrap-up of the Women's March that took place over the weekend. CAITLYN Jenner, as you know, went to the Women's March and spoke. And Napoleon, tell us about what happened.
That's right. Really quickly, we can say that CAITLYN Jenner, she became famous first from her Olympic decathlon that she ran, but then also for becoming an openly LGBTQ trans woman in 2015. She swept the nation by being that open about her transformation. And this past Saturday, she attended a women's march in LA that was all about ending the slaughter of trans women of color, which we've reported on. There have been an enormous number of trans women of color that were killed last year, murdered last year. She knows, CAITLYN Jenner, that the transition itself is harder than training for the Olympics because she's done both. And while I think the video might show what she's like, she has said things along the lines of, sadly, I was wrong. The reality is that for the trans community is being relentlessly attacked by this president, Trump. Trump who she previously supported. He has ignored our humanity. He has insulted our dignity. He has made trans people into political pawns as he whips us up against us to energize the most right-winged of us. So that's her opinion on what Trump, who she formerly supported, is doing to the trans community now. She's taken a full swing around and is now pro-trans in every capacity.
America, I remind you, at 8 o'clock tonight, It's Happening Out, the most popular live gay TV show in the world. We'll be specifically discussing this story, and you should tune in for it. Our final story that we want to talk about in Queuing Up the USA is what is being considered in California about the pardon of Bayard Rustin. And Aaron, well, before Aaron starts, let us show you a little of this. Watch.
And we are here today, our two caucuses coming together to ask Governor Newsom to posthumously pardon Bayard Rustin. Today is exactly 67 years from the date, January 21st, 1953, where Bayard Rustin, who was one of the heroes of the civil rights movement and also a gay man, was arrested in Pasadena for the quote-unquote crime of having consensual sex with other men in a car.
So as we just saw, California lawmakers in the state of California are asking Democratic elected Governor Gavin Newsom to overturn a conviction of Bayard Rustin, who many of us might know him. He is a gay civil rights activist who very close confidant of Martin Luther King and actually helped organize the March on Washington. In 1953, he was caught by police officers having sex with another man inside of a car. That time, there were anti-sodomy laws, which we still have a lot of the anti-sodomy laws across the country, anti-gay laws that are used as tools of oppression. So he was charged, he was convicted, spent 60 days in jail, and now we're asking that his lawmakers are asking that his conviction be pardoned because he still has to register and recognize himself as actually being a sex offender.
We move, thank you for that report. We move into Queuing Up Entertainment. We go a little lighter than our world and breaking news and USA news and entertainment. Of course, if you have not heard, this is absolutely fascinating. RuPaul has been announced to host Saturday Night Live. Napoleon, tell us what's happening there.
That's right. For the first time ever, a drag queen is hosting SNL, Saturday Night Live. And we see a clip of RuPaul as if he were performing. He actually made a guest appearance in 1993, but it was not as a host. And that's why this is revolutionary, because RuPaul has really swept the LGBTQ nation with all that she's accomplished in the past 10 years, on TV especially. She's had a talk show, even if it wasn't picked up. She has had, I think, 11 series. Season 12 of her regular show, RuPaul's Drag Race. She's on season 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. She just started the UK version, a Celebrity Drag Race version, an Australia version, and has had the second season of Thailand. So she's doing a lot, in addition to AJ and the Queen, which just launched her first scripted leading role on Netflix, and we discussed that last week on Q News Tonight. I think what all that shows is that RuPaul really is the person that has drag out of the underground club scene and into the public eye. So I congratulate RuPaul for her Emmy Award-winning shows and for herself. And I look forward to seeing what she can do on SNL, because that bitch better work.
And and I was going to give you the same opportunity. Any catchphrases that you'd like to work into this story?
Not particularly. I'm very excited for RuPaul. It's going to be wonderful for our community.
Yeah. I will have to plan. I think I'm going to host a watch party. And we have a big celebration party for that evening.
I love that idea.
Live. All right. We move into Queuing Up Sports. And in Queuing Up Sports, we want to talk about the conversation that is going on about self-hate in the LGBT community. And we asked the question about, did homophobia cause Aaron Hernandez murders? Aaron, tell us a little about that.
Well, ironically, to piggyback off this, we actually kind of touched on this last night with internalized homophobia. So a lot of us remember Aaron Hernandez. He's a former NFL player with the New England Patriots. 2013, he was convicted for murdering his fiance's then brother. And there's a new Netflix documentary called Killer Inside, the mind of Aaron Hernandez. So what they're trying to explore is his past as a child, having been sexually abused by men, and even equating it to go as far as O.J. Simpson, who had a gay father, and equating the gay aspects of their life and the way that they were affected by homosexuality as being a way that they've internalized rage inside, and because of homosexuality, that they then acted upon that in a very violent manner.
We are going to next move into queuing up health. And at Q News tonight, we are frequently going to report on health issues that affect the LGBT community. The CDC has announced new safe sex guidelines for hepatitis C. And Aaron, tell us about what is going on with the CDC.
Well, I love that we're having this conversation because, as many of our viewers know, we're broadcasting to you live tonight from the World AIDS Museum and Education Center. So knowing your status, not just in regards to HIV, but to any and all STI infections is absolutely crucial and important. So according to the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, they have some new findings in regards to hepatitis C. They're saying that it's primarily spread through blood, and there is no concrete evidence as of yet as to whether or not hepatitis C can actually live in saliva or semen, both from men and from women. And they've gone on to just list what it is that they think that people should do to protect themselves from prolonged exposure, contraction, and transmission of hepatitis C, and that is to practice safer sex, to have less sex partners, and above all, and why we are broadcasting from the World AIDS Museum and Education Center, it's all about knowing your status.
I'm curious, do you think the CDC's attention that they draw to hepatitis C will have direct effect on the LGBT community? Will we be listening to it, or we have just tuned out so much as it relates to HIV, we're not going to hear it?
Well, I mean that's a big question, because in regards to HIV, even when the CDC is telling you to practice safer sex by using things like condoms, for example, we're hearing the opposite when it comes to HIV infection, where one can just take Truvada, which is also known as PrEP, so pre-exposure medication, to detour their chances of contracting HIV. So they kind of contradict each other, but regardless, that's why I'm saying it's always just important to know your status, to protect yourself, and know what you're getting yourself in.
Yeah, very great. Excellent advice. Napoleon, I'm also curious from the standpoint of so many, we live in Broward County, Dade County. South Florida has among the highest new transmissions of HIV in the United States. Hepatitis C is something that we don't talk nearly as much about as HIV, but has the same consequential effects of the need for condom sex. And because of Truvada and other drug forms, people can discuss, well, I've solved the problem. But this new report from the CDC indicates that unless you're using a condom, it doesn't protect you. So you can still transmit so many other things, so many other STIs. What do you think the gay community's reaction to this new report's going to be?
I have a long time stated that just because you're on PrEP or just because you're on anything doesn't mean that you're having safe sex, because there's only so much of a perspective and a percentage that you're actually having quoted safe sex on medications like PrEP or other medications from Truvada or elsewhere, because it doesn't protect you from other STIs, just like Aaron said, and the effective rate is not 100%. It isn't even 100% with condoms, and that is still the recommendation that I and most of the LGBTQ people who understand health would state, is that you need to use a condom. Doesn't matter what you want, it doesn't matter what you don't want, you need to use a condom, because that is how you stay safe.
Well, America, we will continue to vigorously report the news of health at Q News tonight. We want to move into a segment that we call Queuing Up Gay Culture. And we like to explore, even though this is a news show, we like to explore interesting things that are happening in our community that are quite unique. And something unique happened this week. Black history took place at the Gay Porn Oscars. Napoleon, tell us about what this story means.
Happily. So this past Monday was the Gay VNs, which stands for Gay Vegas Nights, and it takes place in Las Vegas. These are the Oscars of gay porn, where they have official award categories and they have fan favorite voted categories. The hosts were Alec Mapa and Nicole Byer, but of course, drag icon Shangela passed down the hosting platform from last year when she hosted. This year was important because black actor D'Angelo Jackson won as the best actor in a porn series for the first time. It was the first time that a black actor won, and he was in Icon Males Blended Family is the name of the script. If you want to go take a watch. Ideally, though, the real problem here is that 3 years ago, the award show suffered from a criticism over having an ethnic category where any Latin, Black, or Asian performers would be involved. And that's what they're trying to recover from now. Not to say that he's not the most glorified or the most accepting of the
most talented of the
performers. But this is in part, I think, a retribution for the fact that they had a very uncouth category 3 years ago that was separate and not equal.
Hmm. Any thoughts from you, Aaron, or you're just...
Never a dull moment in our community.
That's our gay culture report tonight that we queue up for you, and we congratulate this actor and the record that is broken tonight.
And the fans that voted for him.
And the fans that voted for him.
Best top, best bear, best duo.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, we're going to end our show, Q News tonight, our evening news broadcast tonight, with what we call Q Up Inspirational. And we had an interesting thing happen last night that brought all three of us to a stop. And we thought we would draw attention to it because we rarely have this opportunity. And that is about what is happening in impeachment. And our topic in Inspirational is called, Can You Say Pettifogging? And it took place in the Senate last night by the Supreme Court Justice using the word pettifogging. And we've prepared this. Watch this.
That is not conducive to civil discourse. In the 1905 Swain trial, a senator objected when one of the managers used the word pettifogging, and the presiding officer said the word ought not to have been used. I don't think we need to aspire to that high a standard, but I do think those addressing the Senate should remember where they are.
So as you just saw, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts used a word that perhaps many of us in the 21st century were not very much so well aware of. That is pettifogging, which means to be petty or to bicker over insignificant details. This was mentioned as he was citing previous case law in regards to the fact that people on both sides making arguments for and against impeachment were disrespecting the Senate body of which they stood on.
What was your reaction when you heard him use such a word? Did you know that word before?
I didn't. I Googled it.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah. I was like, that's not Greek.
Yeah, that's right. What was your reaction when you heard the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court use such an odd word?
It doesn't surprise me because, I mean, he was referring to previous case law. He's talking about another instance in the Senate body where an attorney is arguing a case and, again, acting in such a manner that it's disrespectful to the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah, and my friend Napoleon, who is a millennial that I tease all of the time, millennials certainly have never used interesting, unique words like that before.
Now I feel like I should be using all sorts of vernacular that helps to make it more conspicuous of my own intelligence in a plethora of different ways. But I'm not going to do that right now because I actually had heard this word. And what it made me think of was our conversation yesterday, because I think that's a little bit of what was happening on air. You and I got so heated over what was going on because we care so much about our country and our community that we were getting a little bit toward pettifogging. And so I say, viewers, you've gotten to see this word firsthand yesterday between Aaron and myself, and hopefully we can move forward just like the LGBTQ community needs to do and find our own common ground as a way to move forward as well. Because we're colleagues, we appreciate each other, and we appreciate you too, viewers.
Do I need to provide equal time or...
As RuPaul would say, can I get an amen?
Yes, absolutely. All right. That is today's news for the LGBT community on the world's first daily gay evening news show. Remember, if it's important to you in the LGBT community, it's important to the three of us and important to this broadcast. For my friend Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays, I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and we are out of the closet and into the headlines. And this is Q News Tonight. Thank you and good night.